This meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman will now come to order. Please rise for the singing of the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, these are some flyers.
All right, you have before you a copy of the modified written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written?
What else different on the modified agenda? I haven't looked at it, I'm sorry.
2 items under mayor's business. You need to accept the MOU that goes with the grant for the youth jobs program, which we found out last week we were awarded, and consideration of a project to help match a grant for the MSU studio school camp.
Mayor?
Yes.
Unless there's objection, I would like to be placed as the liaison to the ADA board and have that item be put on consent.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Corey. What item is that, Alderman Corey?
Item D in the board business.
Is to place item 10D, the consideration of the appointment of Alderman Corey as the board liaison to the Commission on Disability. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. We have further proposed revision.
I've got a few. I'd like to put minutes item A on consent.
Proposed revision from Alderman Dumas is to place item 4A, the approval of the minutes from February 12th, or February 21st, 2012 on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
That is it.
Any
on
objection?
consent.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
B under minutes to consent.
Proposed revision from Alderman Dumas is to place item 4B, the approval of the minutes from March 6, 2012, as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
Under board business, I'd like to place item E, the consideration of calling for a public hearing on the sidewalk ordinance on consent.
Proposed revision from Alderman Dumas is to place item 10E, calling for a public hearing on the revision to the sidewalk ordinance on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have no objection, but let me just mention this to the mayor and the colleagues. Since that matter is being placed on consent for consideration to be included in the amendments, I would like to request for a language to be incorporated in the ordinance that would include specific exclusions for the industrial park areas that are located off of Industrial Park Road, Malley Road, Airport Road, Pilot Road, and Sproul Industrial Road. I would like for there to be specific language in the ordinance that would specifically exclude those areas from the sidewalk ordinance. So I would like that to be a part of the draft that will be brought back for the next meeting for the board's consideration. Ms. Sproul, you've heard those comments, right? Make sure that's in there. The board may want to vote it out, but let's bring it up, so put it on the table for discussion.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection to Alderman Dumas' revision? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revisions?
I do. Under personnel, item 1 to consent.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 11I1, the approval of the advertisement to fill the vacant position of Operator 1 in the Landscape Division of Sanitation and Environmental Services as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
Yes.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, you have further proposed
Under
revision.
personnel, item 2 to consent.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 11I2, the approval of the advertisement to fill the vacant position of apprentice lineman in the electric department as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
Under personnel, item 3 to consent.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 11I3, the hire of Joyner Williams to fill the temporary full-time position of building inspector in building codes and planning department as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Davis, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Davis, you have further proposed revision.
Under personnel, item 4 to consent.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 11I4, the approval of promoting Ronnie Betts to fill the position of foreman in the wastewater sewer division of public services as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
Under board business, I'd like to put item C on consent, including that we select option 7 with funds first coming from any leftover current year capital funds, and then the remaining funds are all, if needed, coming from the ending fund balance.
Can't take it out of the contingency before it gets spent up?
Could.
I think
Alderman
we're-
Sistrunk?
I
We have
think we're-
36,000 in contingency at this time.
I do have a question for Ms. Outlaw, if some of that contingency money is committed already, and tonight, I think there's probably $25,000 tonight of things that are gonna come from those contingency funds, so.
A safer
Are there
purchase to
commitments for some of that 36,000 that
I
haven't?
don't know of anything that's taking up the 36,000. I'm not aware of anything.
Well, then let me reorder that then to include, first order being contingency, second being any leftover capital year, current year funds, and then third being, ending fund.
You want contingency first before capital fund.
That's right.
All right. The proposed revision from Alderman Dumas is to modify item 10C and place it on the consent agenda. It would be placed on the consent agenda, and listen to me, Alderman Dumas, as the approval of placement of stop signs and traffic calming devices along University Drive at Maxwell Street, as presented in the packet as option 7,
Option 7.
to be funded by the contingency fund. If insufficient funds remain in the contingency fund, to be funded through remaining capital improvement funds. If insufficient funds do not remain in capital improvement funds, to be funded from ending fund balance. Alderman
Correct.
Dumas, that's your proposed revision.
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, you have further proposed revision.
I do not.
Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure that it looks like it's been taken off the matter under board business under the amended agenda item number F, consideration and approval of the letter of engagement from T.E. Light and Associates for the board authorizing internal control analysis of the city of Starkville grants, accounts payable, and payroll accounts to provide oversight for the city clerk's office. I don't want that on the consent agenda.
That's right, and that is also one of the modifications on the
Okay.
agenda. I'm sorry, I neglected to note that at the outset. That item is not on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Do we have any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda is revised is in order. Alderman Sistrunk?
Alderman Dumas, do you want to leave item 10A on the agenda?
I like what's still on there. status of the recycling program in the city of Starkville. I'd like for it to stay on.
She's not here, is she?
I think
She's
Lynn
not.
is prepared to make the report.
Okay. Okay.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
So moved.
Alderman Corey has made a motion to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Dumas. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. You now have before you the consideration of the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the consent agenda as revised? Any objection to the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised is approved. That will take us to announcements and comments by the mayor and board. I have one unscheduled announcement tonight before I make my announcement that was scheduled, and that is just a reminder to the members of the board that we are now in the first phase of our evaluation program. You have in these envelopes in front of you evaluation forms between now and April 30th, which is a week from Monday. We need your evaluations for the city clerk, chief administrative officer, information technology manager, and the personnel officer, so that they can be aggregated for board discussion at the next meeting. I now have the privilege of recognizing Brittany Jacks for a very significant accomplishment. Yes, I'll ask that y'all come forward. And Brittany just received the Power Distributorship Scholarship. This is a scholarship program that exists throughout the whole Tennessee Valley. It is a partnership between power distributors that work within the Tennessee Valley region and the Tennessee Valley Authority. There are over 110 distributors that are eligible to have applicants for the scholarship, and there were over 150 applicants for the scholarship this year. 30 of those scholarship applicants were selected, and we are so honored that Brittany is actually the first ever recipient that is the child of an employee of the Starkville Electric Department. This is a $4,000 scholarship, and it will go towards her college expenses. Please join me in offering Brittany a well-deserved congratulations. And that will conclude my announcements and comments for this evening. Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just want to make one public service announcement, primarily for the viewers of this board meeting, that the city of Starkville is in the process of trying to get a community development block grant through the Golden Triangle Planning Development District for drainage improvements for Carver Drive. And in part of that grant application, a public hearing is required. A public hearing will be conducted to discuss the city of Starkville grant application to address the flooding and drainage problems in the Carver Drive neighborhood. And we're asking all the residents of the Carver Drive area and all those on Carver Drive to please attend this very important and urgent meeting that will be held at the Pavilion at the J.L. King Park on Saturday, April 28, 2012 at 10 a.m. Again, the meeting will be held at the Pavilion at the J.L. King Park on Saturday, April 28, 2012 at 10 a.m. And Ms. Phyllis Benson will be on hand from the Golden Triangle Planning Development District to answer any questions, and I will definitely be present, and we really need everyone's attendance and participation. So those who live on Carver Drive and in the Carver Drive area, We are looking forward to your presence and participation. Thank you.
Do we have any further comments or announcements by the members of the board? Any further comments? Alderman Sistrum.
Some of you know that my mother is in very declining health and lives at some distance from the city of Starkville. I find myself in a position of needing to and wanting to spend more and more time helping attend to her and to her affairs. As a result of that, I have less and less time to do other things. One of those, in making her a priority, is that I'm not going to be able to continue right now as a member of the Budget and Audit Committee. And I wanted to let y'all know that I very much enjoyed my time with that committee. I hope I made a positive difference for the community. Thank you.
And Alderman Sistrunk, let me just say you have more than made a positive difference with that committee. Your expertise has been of substantial value to not only that committee, but this city.
Thank you.
Do we have further announcements and comments by the members of the board? Any further announcements or comments by the members of the board? Any further announcements or comments? Seeing none, that will take us to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
I was greeting to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. Want to recognize Vice Mayor Sid Trump and Alderman Vaughn. Thank you, Alvin.
Mr. Turner.
The citizens, when they are seeing that you want to re-evaluate the departments of the city, that send one message to the citizens, that you silence the voice of the citizens. So, with that, we have to take whatever comes. Voice don't mean anything. I am a neighborhood watch member of Pecan Acres, and I would like the chief to enlighten me and others on 2 issues that's coming up with the weather changing, and it is sexual battery and sexual harassment, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, Madam Clerk, Mr. Attorney, good evening. My name is Summer Davis, resident of Ward 4. First of all, Alderman Sistrunk, sorry to hear about your personal circumstances. Let me say thank you for your service on the Budget Committee. I know firsthand that is a time-consuming endeavor, and thank you very much. I would also like to thank all of you for your actions earlier this night concerning the item on the traffic calming issue on University Drive. Thank y'all very much. It's much needed. I appreciate y'all's support on that. One last issue I'd like to throw out to you is Mr. Perkins has done a yeoman's work along with Mr. Vaughn advocating for drainage improvements along Carver Drive ditch. I commend both of you for your advocacy of your citizens.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to suggest and hopefully ask each of you to support stormwater mitigation along North Nash Street in Ward 4. Unless y'all have changed something, I'm not aware of a single dollar that has either been spent nor programmed to be spent in storm water mitigation or management in the entirety of Ward 4 on your current plan of $2-some-odd million. There's a proposal for about $40,000 that would help tremendously in our area. I know that some of my neighbors have talked with city staff about it in an informal manner. And we would like to begin tonight by advocating publicly for y'all to see fit to help us. Again, let me reiterate, there has been $0 that y'all show on your documents in stormwater improvement for Ward 4, the entirety of Ward 4, that has either been spent or programmed to be spent on y'all's list that y'all show. So, I want to utilize this time tonight just to say, A, thank you for what you did on University Drive, and B, hopefully y'all will support us equally as we come forward with these other items in the near future. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any further citizen comments?
Good evening, members of the board. Jason Walker, I'm also a citizen of Ward 4, and I would like to echo what Mr. Davis just said, and thank you for taking up the issue of traffic calming on University Drive and Maxwell Street. As you all know, that intersection is now a very active node and has changed tremendously over the last 10 years. Much more pedestrian activity there throughout all times of the day, especially at night. Currently, there is no stoppage of traffic from Coconuts at the intersection of North Nash and University Drive all the way till you get to the architecture building on campus. That's over a mile. So having that very active node as a mid-block crossing, meaning there is no stoppage of vehicular traffic, is not a very safe environment for the pedestrian or the people in a vehicle. So I would say I commend you for looking at a curb extension. One, it's going to improve vehicular safety, but it's also going to greatly improve pedestrian safety of an area that's certainly changing and activity is increasing, and it is much needed to address that issue on University Drive and Maxwell Street.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Walker. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Brian Kelly, I'm also a member, or a citizen of Ward 4, and I own a couple of businesses over there at the intersection that Mr. Walker and Mr. Davis have just spoken about. And I would also like to thank y'all for taking that matter up and just state that I believe it was 5 years ago, I also presented the exact same matter to the previous board as a result of people being hit out there by vehicles coming through. Since I presented the matter to that board, there was a yellow light put out there for a temporary period of time. That was taken down. I'm not sure exactly when. Since that time, I've personally helped pick up two people off of the street that were hit by a vehicle, and I know of 3 more. I'm out there on a daily basis. I see all the people in that area, all the traffic that comes through, and looking at the options that y'all have put forth, I would highly recommend y'all do the curb build out and the stop sign there. I think that would be the safest way to go, and it seems to be a pretty cost effective way. I think anything is better than nothing. I noticed that just a stop sign was one of the cheaper alternatives. While I do think that would be beneficial, if there are large vehicles parked in that last parking spot on University Drive without a curb build out, it's going to be very difficult for drivers and pedestrians to see that stop sign or oncoming vehicles. So again, if y'all would just consider putting that option forth, I know that the business owners would appreciate that, and it would make for a much safer Starkville in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none,
Mayor, if I could, and I know that we're not meant to get in a dialogue at this point in time, but I think your points that were made about stormwater mitigation are well taken, and we've discussed that the list that we have before us as a drainage improvements plan is very lacking in addressing lots of different areas of town. And I believe Mr. Kemp is working on updating that list. I'm sure he'll be in touch with you if he needs some additional information about your particular project. But I would like us to have a new and more comprehensive, although it's an ever-evolving, a more comprehensive drainage improvement list.
We'll now move to public appearances. We have one public appearance scheduled tonight, and that is by Jen Gregory from the Greater Starkville Development Partnership to discuss downtown parking issues. Ms. Gregory, you'll have a maximum of 10 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you. Good evening, thanks for your time tonight. Just wanted to bring forward to you guys a request from the Starkville Main Street Association. Starkville Main Street Association is part of the Greater Starkville Development Partnership and is made up of dues-paying businesses that have a vested interest in downtown Starkville because they either have a business or some other interest in the downtown area. The Starkville Main Street Association represents an area basically from Highway 182 to Lampkin Street and all of Russell Street as well. So it's a pretty large area. The board recently, at our regular scheduled Board of Directors meeting, unanimously voted to request assistance from the City of Starkville for parking enforcement, 2-hour parking enforcement in downtown Starkville. The area that we're specifically referencing includes Main Street from Washington Street to Jackson Street, as well as actually Washington Street, Lafayette Street, and I think that's all, that 2-block corridor in downtown Starkville. As you know, retail and business growth in downtown Starkville is really taking off right now. There's not a single storefront that's vacant on Main Street in those 2 blocks that we're referencing right now. So there are more and more customers, more and more people shopping and spending time eating in restaurants in downtown Starkville, which we think is a great thing. Our sales tax dollars, I think, have reflected some of that. But some of our retailers are having some issues with individuals parking on Main Street for an extended period of time. We have the 2-hour parking signs, but as most of us know, it's not currently being enforced, and we are respectfully requesting that the board look at that and hear our request for assistance with enforcement of 2-hour parking in that area. Ms. Spruill included in your packet, I believe, a white paper report that was completed by one of our consultants, which basically suggests several recommendations. But the main issue, the main thing that we want you to hear tonight is just our request for assistance with enforcement. I've met with Chief Lindley and Chief Administrative Officer Ms. Spruill to talk about this, and we have vowed to work together to try to educate the business owners downtown, but we also wanted to bring this request before the board and mayor this evening as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Mayor, may we recognize?
You may.
Ms. Gregory, just a few questions. Now, you say you're here tonight to seek assistance with enforcement. Now, only the City of Stark Police Department has the authority to enforce. Now, what do you mean that you're trying to seek assistance with enforcement? What do you specifically mean?
Assistance from the Board of Alderman with the matter of parking enforcement. As you said, that the police department are the only ones that can enforce that, but we're asking your encouragement, if you will, for the police department to enforce that 2-hour parking downtown.
Let me make sure I specifically understand the scope of, now, are you asking us to enforce that ordinance as it is? I mean, you're not talking no friendly tickets and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, that's right. We're encouraging enforcement of the existing law, the existing ordinance. Some of the recommendations in the white paper include means to help with that enforcement. Some of them include new technology. Some of them include a tiered fine. This is basically, the report was basically a way to bring up the issue and several recommendations that we think might help make enforcement an easier topic in the future. But right now, it's not being, the 2-hour parking isn't being enforced at all. So we are, as you mentioned, requesting enforcement of the existing ordinance. But these were some topics of interest that we wanted to bring forward to the board and to the police department.
So make sure I clearly understand, you just asking the board just for complete strict enforcement. You're not asking for no courtesy tickets, for no friendly tickets and white paper, whatever kind of paper it is. You're just asking for just pure enforcement of the law.
That's right. We'd like to work with the police chief and the police department in the future with I think the friendly ticket that you're referencing is in the white paper, and that's basically a way to encourage visitors to the downtown area that have never been to downtown Starkville that might receive a parking citation, to bring some awareness to them about public parking lots in the area. And the tiered ticket structure also is a way that we think will help with the problem of repeat offenders. But yes, this evening I'm here just to specifically ask that we enforce the ordinance on the books.
Mr. Mayor, I'll yield the floor when I get finished. Ms. Gregory, let me just give you Alderman Perkins' viewpoints on this. We have discussed this over a period of years.
Sure.
Now, and I'm going to mention to the mayor when I yield the floor so everybody will know that, okay? Now, what I'm suggesting to you is, now, I'm not in favor, I'm just one, I'm not in favor for no friendly ticket, for no tiered ticket, for no courtesy ticket, because if the police department's going to give a courtesy ticket downtown, I want them to give a courtesy ticket in Ward 6. I want them to give a courtesy ticket all over, and they don't have the manpower to do that. The police department and the city court, they got enough work to do. I mean, they got time to be handing out, in my opinion, no friendly ticket, no first ticket, no white ticket or black, whatever color ticket it is. Now, the city of Starkville is growing. I mean, that's good we're growing. We have a lot of restaurants downtown. So, and I can envision that, it's hard for the restaurant owners to say, well, customers, you only have 2 hours to sit here and eat your food and digest it, okay? Now, if you're going to ask the police department to enforce this ordinance, now I don't want nobody calling the police chief, well, my buddy got a ticket today, I want you to take care of the ticket. Now, I mean, we don't have, and so I've been through this discussion before. It's my 19th year at this table, and we're going to talk about this many times. And now, if we're going to ask the police department to enforce it, Ms. Spruill and the police chief only have the authority of what this board gives them. We give the chief the authority to enforce this ordinance. Then if he send his men out there and they get a ticket and they be in Mr. Rook's court, then it go for the city judge. It's ticket, whether it's alumni of Mississippi State or wherever they from. So because when you start back enforcing it, I mean, there's going to be a lot of complaints. And if this board by majority vote decides to enforce it, I don't want to hear from anybody. If they get a ticket, I want them to pay it. Now, and sometimes it's best just to leave some stuff alone. And no disrespect to you, I'm just talking in general to everybody in the TV land in the city of Stark. Sometimes it's best to leave stuff alone. Now we got 2 public parking lots here in the city of Stark. We got one behind the Starkville Cafe, and we got one across the street from the old George Evans shoe shine shop. So, and then again, we got the issue of the employees. And of course, if I'm an employer and somebody's working for me, I think I can give them the authority of some things that they can do. If they don't want to do what I tell them to do, then there are options. So, there are some of the employees, not saying that anybody's doing anything wrong, but some of the employees can park in some of these public spaces. It's good to walk. That's good for the health. I know it's good for mine, okay? But moreover, now, and I'm just saying this respectfully to my colleagues, we need to be very careful on this issue. See, because when you start strict enforcement, the chief is going to have to, in my opinion, I'm not the police chief, but in my opinion, he's going to have to devote the staff to go back and forth every 2 hours to monitor the traffic there. And then, then he don't have time to be sending his officer out there and then be dealing with comments at the same time when the wrong person get a ticket. And I don't believe in this tiered or courtesy, because see, as a body, in my opinion, we cannot have selective enforcement. If we're going to have a tiered ticket downtown, I want the police chief to direct his staff and the board to direct the police chief every time he stops somebody in my ward, in another ward, I want them to get a courtesy ticket. But that's not feasible. So since that's not feasible for my ward, in another ward, we don't need to do it downtown. No disrespect for downtown. But see, when you have strict enforcement, you have the tendency of treating everybody who's similar situated similarly. And I'm not talking hard to you, Miss Gregg. We appreciate your presence. But it's just the subject matter, I'm talking to the public here. But I think that, that now, if we have this strict enforcement, I mean, we're either going to have no enforcement or strict enforcement without exceptions. See, because when you, Mr. Mayor, do I need to yield to somebody at the table? Okay, but when we have strict enforcement, there are gonna be problems, there are gonna be complaints, and I don't see our getting any more parking spaces. So, we just have to utilize the resources. I don't think this is a good proposal to ask the board to have any type of tiered approach. I think that strict enforcement, it's may not be what I think, that the petitioners want. Because, I'm downtown a lot. I don't expect to find them a lot of times because, we're just growing. Just keep making the circle wherever I can find them. So, but in all due respect to you, and we appreciate your being here, I'm not being hard with you, but I just want to address that. And then, the matter of the city court, they got to, there's time on them, and but yet if the board wants to do that, that's fine. But I don't think we need to go to no tiered approach. But now, if we ask for strict enforcement, I don't think we need to be meeting with Ms. Brule and the police chief for any exceptions, because they don't have the authority to do that. So either have strict enforcement or no enforcement. And I don't think we have the authority to, it's fair and proper and right to be given some type of courtesy ticket. So, but I think, we as a body needs to think long and hard about how we should proceed. And in my opinion on it, but given my experience with this subject matter, just leave it like it is. Sometimes when you leave things alone, they'll just take care of themselves. And I think this is one of those situations. We're a growing city, and I'm very glad to see downtown. We've spent a lot of money on downtown, and it's been well spent, and there's been a lot of growth, a lot of positive things that happened over the years. But so when you have all those things collectively, you're gonna run out of spaces. And with all the restaurants and the nightlife, all that's and during the lunch hour, if I go to the courthouse at lunch, I don't expect to find a park space. I just go another time, so I don't complain about it. So, but I just wanted to share those comments, and all due respect to me, Ms. Gregg, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but I just wanted to share that this is my duty. I'm always going to try to carry out my role as long as I'm here. But, Mr. Mayor, I think those are some things that we need to be careful with, because if Mr. Mayor, one last thing I want to say, if we have strict enforcement, we're going to get complaints just like we are about no parking. Mr. Mayor, I'm here. I went in this store and I wasn't parked there 2 hours. If the police chief sent his officer out there and gave you a ticket, you need to pay it. So if you're going to have strict enforcement, we need to pay for it. We don't need to be asking nobody for no exceptions. We don't need to be worrying Mr. Tony Rook. We don't need to be worrying the judge. We don't need to be worrying the police chief. We don't need to be worrying Mr. Thomas, Mr. Nichols, or nobody else, including Alderman Perkins. Mr. Mayor, I yield the floor.
Alderman Davis.
Thank you, Ms. Greger, for coming. I've been a part of this process since the very beginning, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity to look at options. And that's exactly what we hired Tripp to do, and I think that's what he's done. And I agree with Alderman Perkins that we probably we do need consistent enforcement. But I will have to say that through the years, the complaints to me, and I'm downtown quite a bit, both with Main Street and other associations, is that there are issues and there are wants and needs from business owners to look at enforcement. And they don't want to do it in a derogatory sense of curtailing people coming to their stores and businesses and offices, but just as we saw in the paper yesterday. Someone on North Lafayette had an article, a letter to the editor about parking issues on North Lafayette. I don't know if any of you have been on Lafayette Street, and I've just noticed this over the last couple. Brian, you're there all the time. Lafayette Street's hard to even navigate these days. So I don't have all the answers, and I don't know the answers, and that's why I asked for this white paper to be included. I also asked for Ms. Spruill to include in the packet our current ordinances that deal directly with parking, and so those are included. And there are things that tie directly to downtown. I respect the fact that Chief Lindley is extremely busy, and he knows that, and I've told him that. But what I would like to do is explore the options and ask him to give us a look at what the options are as far as enforcement. Is it a meter maid? Do we have volunteers? I don't know what all those options are, but I would like to explore them and have him to report back to us so that we can see what those things are. You know, these issues may not be, I think some of them are incredibly creative in looking at, you know, tickets that give you maps to parking areas instead of fines, those type things. I think those are nice things to do. So Chief, is that something that you could do over the next couple of meetings? I would, absolutely. Thank you.
Sure.
Sure, I'll be glad to. The first thing I did in 1975 as a rookie patrolman was chalk tires on Main Street, so I'm somewhat familiar with it. Here's what it's going to take: resources. To be effective, it has to be from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's 40 hours a week. I don't have currently the staff to do that. So we're going to be talking about hiring a parking enforcement officer, meter maid,
Right.
if you will. It would be a full-time position. It would be with benefits. Even if you started them in the neighborhood of what dispatch pay would be, that would be plus benefits somewhere in the $35,000 range. You would have uniforms, training. You would have some computer equipment if we're going to try and go to e-tickets that we have to do. But as y'all have heard me say, we're actually bigger population-wise in Columbus now. Columbus has 70 officers, and I've got 55. I lost 20% of my force last year, and I haven't been able to restock yet. We can't add as many into our existing officers as I need to, so I'm still about 10% short right now where I should be. I've got 3 in the academy. I've got 2 riding with FTOs. We're a skeleton force right now. Now, if y'all want to do this and give me the resources to do it, we can do it. But now, over the years, and haven't asked me this, but I feel like it's the
Well,
time
I want to
to
know the
bring it.
history too.
Well, I feel like it's time to bring it forward. Mr. Perkins is right. When I first started, we had parking meters. And the merchants decided at that time, after they had been there for about 15 years, that parking meters were detrimental to shoppers. So we actually went up with pipe cutters and cut the parking meters down. Then we went to 2-hour enforcement. That's waxed and waned over the years. One of the things that an enforcement officer would also do is write U-turn tickets. When we were at our most strong stance on that as far as enforcement, we actually got complaints from merchants that we were running customers off. And when you write somebody a U-turn ticket for making a illegal left turn on Main Street, they rarely then feel like going in and having lunch or buying something, because now, I think Tony can correct me, but that's a moving violation. It's going to be around the $150 range. But if we put somebody up there, they're going to be enforcing this in the entire district that we're supposed to. And there is an outlined specific downtown area, and if I recall correctly, it includes Lampkin, Washington, Lafayette, Maine, and parts of Jackson. And it is quite an onerous thing to do, and they have to be up there every 2 hours. When they're not, they're watching for U-turns and helping in other ways. So those things need to be addressed. The resources need to be addressed. And in the past, we've had problems with collections, and it works like this. If somebody has unpaid tickets, if you summon the owner of that vehicle to court, you can't prosecute the vehicle. And when it comes to court, you can't prove who was driving the vehicle, so you can't prosecute the car. So our only remedy in the past has either been to tow or wheel lock. So if we get unpaid parking tickets and we start wheel locking cars on Main Street for violators, I just want the board to realize that be careful what you ask for, you might get it. Because if we go up there, we're going to go up there and we're going to do it right. and it's not gonna be particularly well received by some of the constituents. But the 2-hour parking program is something that is still on the books. We quit enforcing it because frankly, we were asked to, and I didn't have the manpower to do it. So if we do it, it will be well received by some, ill received by others. It will be controversial. It will definitely make some people angry because they have expensive tickets or wheel-lock vehicles. I'm trying to think of everything else because I'm trying to download over 30 years worth of experience to y'all.
You know, they make great TV shows about this stuff. I watched one last night on Will Locks.
Well, we can do it. No doubt about we can do it. Is
if you
it the
could
best thing that, honestly, it's on the books and we'll enforce it if y'all direct me to.
Well, if you could give me, I just want to, this is, obviously, I don't have the history you nor Alderman Perkins do. So I want to know what those issues are, and if you could give us a general proposal of what that would cost you as a department.
I think I just did.
Well, I'd like to see it,
I
as
can
far
give
as
it to you in
figures.
writing, but you
Right.
can just basically say it's gonna be
Understand.
about $35,000 I've got to add to my budget.
Okay, all right.
And there's no, I didn't see any specific time in here, is it? I mean, in our current ordinance, there is no 9 to 5, there is no, it just says 2 hours.
Well, I'll try and help Jennifer. The problem is from 9 to 5. You don't
Right.
have a problem with parking after 5 o'clock. So it's always centered on demand for peak hours of parking, which a lot of the businesses don't open until 9, and then after 5, it's not problematic. Now, over the course of the years, of course, Main Street has changed in its complexion. You don't have Cato's, Katz, J.C. Penney's, Thomas, grocery stores. You don't have those anymore. It's changed to law offices, restaurants, bars, specialty stores. So a lot of the people that were long-term parkers for hours, except the employees, that never changes, has changed. One of the things that's helped improve some availability of parking is moving circuit court to the annex to keep grand jury, circuit court jurors and such as that down the hill. Because grand jury was a nightmare in circuit court over the years, but we don't have that problem now. Other questions I might could help answer. I'm intrigued by this electronic tracking of tickets. One of the biggest problems that we have on enforcement of non-compliant people is how to track the unpaid tickets. Because as it's been in the past, we don't have a way to do that. And I'm sure that Tony might want to address the fact that there's going to have to be additional effort in court clerk staff to track parking tickets now, because as they come in paid, you have to remove those, and you don't want to wheel lock someone if they've in fact paid. So that has to be kept current. And honestly, we wrote over 10,000 traffic tickets last year. We have a hard enough time keeping up with moving violations. Now, if you put hundreds of parking tickets on top of that, it's going to overwhelm his staff too. So those are some of the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say.
Well, could you give us an idea also of, and that doesn't have to be tonight, but some of the equipment options as well, so that we can see the whole package, so that we can look at that and evaluate it and move forward from there?
Yes, and I know as much as we don't want Starkville compared to the school up north, Oxford still does this on the square, and I've talked with that chief over the last week, and, you know, he runs into the same things basically that we've had here traditionally.
Right. Well, thank you.
Well,
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none.
Last comment.
Yes.
Basically, just to summarize, you know, this is just a request from the Main Street Board to take a look at parking enforcement. As the chief said, there are a lot of challenges. This white paper is meant to suggest some remedies to help with some of those challenges. This is by no means a requested ordinance. It's just some topics to look at as we look at enforcement in the future. And so I think I just want to be clear that the board and mayor understand our intent here this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that will carry us to mayor's business. Two matters for your consideration tonight.
I move approval on the first.
All right, the city attorney has some comments he'd like to make about the MOU.
In reading over it at the desk here, I just wanted to let the board be aware of Section 10, which is titled Disputes. And what it says is, if the city gets into a dispute with MDOT over this MOU or the city's obligations under the MOU, that dispute would go to the executive director of MDOT for his or her resolution on the issue, and that resolution would control unless it was reversed by legal action or unless the parties agreed to postpone that result pending the outcome of legal action. And so just wanted the board to have that informed knowledge when it voted.
Alderman Dumas, do you still move
Still
approval?
move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Dumas to approve of the memorandum of understanding between MDOT and the city of Starkville for the 2012 Urban Youth Corps program in the amount of $35,000 with 20% matching funds and authorization for the mayor to execute as presented. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Alderman Sistro.
I'd like the city clerk's office to be sure to include this as an obligation of the contingency funds, or as I'm starting to think of it, our loaves and fishes fund, because we spend it and we spend it and we spend it. So.
Does it
Loaves and
multiply?
fishes, you know that parable.
Does
Well,
it
and
multiply?
Yeah.
The matching funds for this were actually approved when we made the application for the grant, which is somewhat atypical, but that's the way we did
I
it that
understand, but earlier we said there were no obligations of those contingency funds, and this would clearly be an obligation of that fund.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. All right, the next matter on the agenda is a request for matching funds for the MSU Studio School project. And I apologize for the tardiness of this coming onto the agenda tonight. I've been working with Kay Bricado for a while, who has implemented this Studio School program successfully in Noxubee and Clay County. Previously, and she has been working with the Appalachian Regional Commission to obtain a grant so that we can have a studio school project that will serve 40 7th through 10th graders in our community that are at-risk youth, and hopefully help get them on track in the classroom and provide other support that's needed. It's a really neat program, and this is also a really hard ask for the city. But ARC has asked for local support to contribute to a much larger sum that they're contributing to the program. And Ms. Bricado has had conversations with the school district. Those conversations have been positive. She believes that there is a strong chance they will approve $7,500 along with the city's $7,500, so that there would be a $15,000 local match shared by the city and the school district for this program. Now, I'd like for the representatives of the program that are here tonight to come forward and tell the board what the program is.
Put me up for the hot seat. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Board. Chris Willis, professor at Mississippi State and Educational Leadership Foundation's colleague of Dr. Bricado. She is in travel back from a conference this evening, and myself and Dr. Walker, Dr. Holmes have been working with Dr. Bricado on this project. Essentially, as the mayor has described it, the Studio Schools summer camp program has been happening in Starkville for a few years at Mississippi State with individuals from other areas. And the real interest here is to engage students in academic work by doing. When we think of studio, we think of the production of work and the making and doing of things, and the iterative process in which there is students make, they are critiqued, they improve, and weaving into that process academic academic skills in key areas that join those areas. We've seen through the work in previous years positive outcomes in terms of students' attitudes, students' sentiment about academic work, as well as their pride in production. And Jason has worked closely with the group from West Point last summer as well, and may be able to shed some more light on that as well.
Briefly, last year we had about 20 students from the West Point School District who were all at-risk students. And what we mean by studio school is what Chris said, is that it's hands-on, it's learning by doing. And these students designed and we built collectively chicken coops. So they got to learn math skills in terms of how to figure out area, how to look at basic design, how to use a drill. So it was some basic skill building along with helping them find a way to find success in a school in an alternative kind of environment that was more application oriented. So it was wildly successful for me, first time having worked with students who weren't college students. And so it was very enlightening and very rewarding at the same time. This year, the project that is proposed will be not building chicken coops, but we'll be looking at walkability and improving pedestrian orientation in Starkville. And while we're making great strides in that area, we have plenty of room for improvement. So one of the things that we'll be looking at for this program will be looking at health issues. We'll be doing a walkability study, and the same kind of thing, we're going to be building something that's related to public infrastructure, helping with a sidewalk, helping with a curb extension on Maxwell and University if it were to so happen. Looking at something like that to help improve walkability in the town. Not to mention, so that's the tangible product that the city gets, along with touchy-feely and really making good, because we want our students to be successful in Starkville, but we also get a tangible product at the end. So along with that, we'll be building in Mississippi core requirements, so they'll be learning how to do estimations for different building materials, et cetera, to build on those math kind of skills and principles, along with healthy issues.
Yes. Just kind of along with those intangible products from this project, we're trying to enhance self-efficacy of active commuting and active transportation, whether it be by walking or bicycling or whatever they choose. We're trying to encourage that in the community and in our young people, so that those behaviors, that they start to form them and cement them when they're young, so that they carry them through adulthood. And do that in a way that allows them an opportunity for civic engagement. So this particular project allows them to increase their healthy behaviors, but also do so in a way that gets them involved with the community. So really looking forward to it.
If there's any questions that we might be able to answer, we can certainly try.
Do we have any questions or comments for our presenters? Alderman Davis.
I've got a couple. So I read in here that this is Starkville School District only, is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
So at-risk students from Starkville School District will be the only attendees. How do they apply? Or how are they selected?
That is going to be in consultation with members of the Starkville School District that are looking to identify who those students might be and who is interested in participating in the program.
We'll look for a good match from guidance counselors, and then have conversation with students to be able to make sure that it's a fit for them.
Right. But they are at-risk kids, so do they have to be
And
involved?
generally, what that means in this case is that they have been retained at least twice and are at risk for dropping out of school altogether.
Do they-
Is what that
Do they have to be included in summer school program? Or I guess at that point, if they're at that much at risk, they probably are already.
Yeah, they most likely, we're talking, summer school programs tend to be focused around the statewide testing programs and those kinds of things. And most likely, these students could fit into that category as well. The students that were worked with from West Point would have been in that same category, as well as the students the previous year from Noxubee would have been in that same realm. I mean, this is the kind of student population that we've targeted. Typically, you find these students as disengaged from school, and we find that through the work of studio schools in which we see academics linked to actual work, causes them to re-engage with the academic side. So that's really our hope in the project.
Well, I saw several of these kids last year with Jason as they were walking around the studio and building these coops. So looked like some of them were incredibly intrigued. Others, I'm not so sure. But
Yeah.
all told, it looked like a good program.
Good. It was a good experience.
Alderman Parker.
Now, if would the program go forward if Starkville School District if you did not get the other $7,500, would the program go forward or not?
I think it's like anything, Alderman Parker, is that you all deal with resources or lack thereof on a daily basis. And so, like Chief Lindley said, we work with a skeleton operation. The more money means more students, more opportunity. Less money means less student, less opportunity for what the camp can be. So whether or not it can go forward or not, the answer is probably we're going to try to do something. We're going to try to do something to continue our efforts because we see it as being very valuable for the young people primarily. But to create the kind of experience as good as the experiences we can create it, more resources would be helpful.
And just our conversation with Starkville Schools has been very positive up to this point, and obviously they're going through their own leadership transition right now, and the new superintendent coming on board this summer. Everyone trying to make sure that that he is the newest player in the community, has full understanding and has opportunity to be supportive of it as well. So, but we have had Dr. Mercado has met with the incoming superintendent, and that conversation was positive.
Further questions, comments, discussion? All right, we have no motion pending. The only thing I would encourage is they need to know as soon as possible whether this is something the city's going to support. So if it looks like it's not going to be the will of the board to support, it probably does help them to know that's the case. Alderman Sistrunk?
I move approval of participating in the MSU Studio School Summer Camp Program in the amount of $7,500 from the contingency fund.
Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to approve of participating in the MSU Studio School Camp project in the amount of $7,500 to come from the contingency fund. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Sistrunk, would you like to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of Alderman Sistrunk's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that will take us to board business. First matter of board business is a report from Ms. Spruill on the recycling program.
Mayor and Board, I regret that Ms. Boyd is unable to attend, so I told her I would do my best to provide the information that was requested by Alderman Dumas last week. She put it together. It is in your packet. I can certainly go over it. The basics are pretty much how the recycling program is currently working. Alderman Parker is the chairman of that particular committee, and her first information is around the grants that we've received. We've received a $25,000 grant, and we have now a second one, has not been expended yet. They are reimbursement grants. And for those, we are authorized to purchase bags, the recycling bags. So that will be expended prior to December of this year. And that is the only use we can make of it, is purchasing the green bags, which will be downsized for Alderman Sistrunk. There have been basically 17 meetings since this administration established the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee. The membership of that committee is made up of Alderman Parker. Ms. Boyd is the staff liaison. Carol Joy takes notes for the committee. And Ms. Fuquay, Tennyson O'Donnell, Nick Wilson, and P.C. McLaurin are on that committee. Wards 2, 6, and 7 have not been able to, or have not got membership there. I think it is one of those committees that sometimes people are not quite as passionate about. So we haven't had a full complement of the wards, but hopefully at some point we'll have some folks that will come forward and participate. Those meetings are scheduled each Thursday, each third Thursday of each month at 4 p.m. in the conference room. So, the events and activities that the recycling committee has put together or has participated in have been to provide the alley cat and provide green bags and also provide some recycling containers at our special events, including the Main Street Market, the Cotton District Arts Festival, Bulldog Bash, Pumpkin Palooza, Block Party, Christmas Parade, the usual events, and then we also assist at the community market when it's going on in the summertime. In fact, that's some of the places we will occasionally set up a table to provide recycling opportunities there if people want to sign up and get bags distributed at that point in time. Our contract with Waste Management began a year ago, April the 1st, and at that point in time, they had prior to actually coming to an agreement with the contract, they had been providing us the service on an ad hoc basis, as we call them. And once we got the contract in place, it is $375 per container per load, and we have 4 per recycling day, and we use recycling 4 times during a month. Even if there's a 5th Wednesday, we only recycle every 1st and 3rd for those who are picked up on Mondays and Thursdays, and 2nd and 4th when those are picked up on Tuesdays and Fridays. So that's our recycling program as it stands right now. It adds up to about $6,000 a month, which is multiplied out about $72,000 per year. And if there are any particular questions, we have a total recyclers, the total now is 2,425, and there have been multiples of those who've come back for additional bags. So our recyclers are loyal. We don't have a full complement of 11,000 folks who are on our customer list for the sanitation department, but we continue to grow however slowly we might. But we're looking for, doing more and advertising more, and that's some of the budget she had used in the past, but I don't think that that's in the plans for this time around. Alderman Parker, did I leave anything out?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Mr. Poole, I want to ask a few questions just for the benefit of the taxpayers to know the answers. I basically already know the answers to these questions, but you may know them.
I hope I do.
I'm not going to put you on the hot spot here. But now the grants we get, Ms. Rule, those grants are used to purchase bags.
Yes, sir.
And the people, the citizens who get the recycling pickup twice a month, they also get the twice a week garbage pickup.
Yes, they do.
The $6,000 a month that the city pays for the recycling, that comes out of the sanitation and environmental services fund.
Yes, it does.
And so those monies that we pay for recycling, it has an impact, upon the costs and operations, of all the matters that deal with the sanitation environmental services department.
Yes, sir.
Right. So the recycling, customer does not pay any fee for services, just like the sanitation do.
Right. It is included as a part of the sanitation fee.
Right. And how is that $72,000+ a year? How is that impacting the sanitation fund and the overall operation of the sanitation environmental services department as relates to the budget, as far as you know?
Well, it certainly has a budgetary impact, no question.
Okay.
We have recently, with the reorganization of the sanitation department, or with the inclusion of the sanitation department, we have now a rubbish division. As you recall, we took rubbish in-house, and we have a landscape and landfill, and then sanitation, and under sanitation is included recycling. So all those are new to this budget year, and we're now evaluating how all those budgetary items are fleshed out.
And my final question, thank you, Ms. Rule. My final question is, do we have enough users with this recycling program that actually justifies the cost in applying the cost-benefit analysis based on your knowledge?
Well, the recycling program obviously has some tangential benefits that go to just the recycling process in and of itself, but if it's strictly a cost-benefit analysis based on the number of users, I don't know, it certainly doesn't pay for itself, if that's the question.
That's the question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Rule.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Alderman Sistrunk.
We have looked at some other things in that department, haven't we, from a cost-benefit analysis? For instance, going to tip carts, doing away with the bags, and we made the decision in that case as a board that the service was something we were going to provide, even though the cost-benefit wasn't there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board?
And I think that goes directly in line with, because just to clarify, we get green bags grant funded, but we pass out what number of black bags? Do you have an idea?
Well, 11,000 users, so we
Twice
pass
a
those out.
year.
Yes.
And so that is not grant funded.
No.
That is funded through, and as far as I know, that's a unique service to the city of Starkville that is a tremendous impact on the bottom line.
It's approximately $120,000 a year.
So, we're spending $125,000 in and above that $13 a month fee in providing black bags for everybody, in addition to the green bags, which,
Part of your fee, but I mean.
well,
But your
Yeah.
part,
when it all adds up, and that's the real question I had in all of this, is I think over the course of the next little while, there's some tough decisions or some conversations that need to be had on this very item from a budgetary standpoint and the impacts of what we're doing and how we sustain it, so.
If you take those 11,000 users and at that cost, I mean, it affects everybody's rate approximately 50 cents a month.
So,
Further questions?
thank you. I appreciate
Comments
it.
from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Thank you, Ms. Brewer. We now have a presentation by Toby Sanford on the status of redistricting. And Mr. Sanford, in addition to making the presentation of where you are, I'm also going to look to you for some guidance as to what our next steps are after this.
Yes, sir. Let's see what all y'all have. Does everybody have the demographic table? Get the new for Plan 3? Mayor, Board, after speaking with all of the board members, we come to this plan here that we see here, Plan 3, which may not fit everything that everybody wants, but it's a good starting point after speaking with the board from Plan 1 and 2. This is more in favor of what most of the board, I believe, feel comfortable with. If you look at our demographic table, here, we go from 70.8% that we talked about before, 70% deviation. And I added a little thing here that explained what that variance actually means. It's just how far the numbers lie from the mean. So this mean is our ideal number. So we have 7 wards, you take that total, you divide it by 7, and that tells you if it was an ideal world, this is how many people should live in each one of our districts. And we bring it down to 7%. District 1 still has 122 people to me, and it is our highest variance in this plan. It's 3.59%, but you can see it changed from 50.12 down to 3.59. District 2 is minus 29. District 3 is minus 117. District 4 is 68, and District 3 is our lowest variance. It's the negative 3.42, and that's how we get to that 7%, is adding those two numbers together and getting us to that 7%. District 4 is 68 people above. District 5 is 67. District 6 is minus 104. And District 7 is minus 10 as far as the population. And then you can see all our percentages. District 6 and 7 are our 2 strong minority districts, are above the 63% for our consent decree. Does anybody have any questions on these numbers? Questions on the numbers? What changed here, which some things stay the same, a few things in here moved from 5 to 6. We were able to take the original line that goes through the Greensboro and recreate that line. Now that took some splitting some blocks because the Census Bureau went in, and even in 2000 those blocks had to be split, the last redistricting, to create this boundary right here. We split these blocks. There's 3 blocks through here that had to be split. I had to count the houses and then use the average of people per house and then use the ratio for those blocks to know how many people to move from the split block level. I believe that some of this right here stayed the same. That changed. I think Ward 2 pretty much stayed the same. Ward 3, this flip-flopped over. We moved this up after speaking with Alderman Parker. This is an area of strong support. You want to keep that one. And that's pretty much the differences. 1, 2 pretty much stayed the same. 4 did that. 5 lost a few people through here. And then we split those blocks right there to recreate the original line.
All right, what we'll do is we'll hear questions and comments from the members of the board, and then Mr. Sanford, I'll have you tell us where we go from here. Do we have any questions or comments from the members of the board?
I've got one, and I know when we started this process, one of the goals was, and this was prior to going the consultant route, was that we would try to conserve the integrity of those that serve on boards and commissions and others, like we do our own addresses within these wards. And I know in Ward 5, for example, Mr. Walker, who serves on P&Z for Ward 4, I would now have 2 individuals on P&Z from Ward 5, and and I don't know how that impacts other addresses of other commission members from other wards, but those are, I can tell you from my standpoint, those are 2 vitally important people that I see on planning and zoning that I would, if there was a way for preservation on that standpoint, one lives on North Nash, for example, one lives on Edgewood. And I honestly hadn't thought about that until it was actually brought to my attention today. But are there other issues on the board that I'm unaware of commission members that serve and changes that might be resulted from there?
Mr. Sanford, is that something you looked at in your analysis?
Yes, sir, that was not part of our, but it could be as part of our criteria when creating this. Mainly we try to keep each board member that he's elected to in his district. Now, if there's other members on other boards that need to stay in ward districts, I would need their addresses and plot them, and then to see if they got moved out of wards or districts, and then rework around that.
Right.
That's what we have to happen.
Alderman Corey.
Right, I do think this is a good start. I think of all the plans we've seen so far, this is getting us closer to what we need. I did mention some concern over the splitting of Ward 4 along University Drive, and I think that's something that at some point, between now and when you present before us again, I'd like to kind of sit with y'all and go over that some and discuss that.
There's no problem. What he's talking about here is University. You see the white line here is the original line that moved into Ward 5, and there's 693 people that live between there and University, and not to say that can't happen. We would just have to, those 693 people, Ward 5 would have to pick up from somewhere else, because that would push us back above that 10%.
And Ward 5 being the furthest from 1 and 3.
Yeah. And that makes it hard to try to, he's going to have to come this way, or he's going to have to come over that way, and then that's going to affect other things. It's kind of a chain reaction.
Further questions or comments? Alderman Sister.
I just have a comment. When you are looking at those additional pieces of data, would you take a look at the historic districts that are being developed and be sure that to the extent possible those addresses are kept together? I think at Greensboro and Raymond, that may be an area that's kind of split between two wards, but it's in that same historic district, is an example.
And that's the reason we went through and resplit those blocks. was to
If
try
you
to
double
keep
check those addresses, please. I think they may have expanded since you were aware.
And I know one of your primary drivers, obviously, is population and the percent decree. When you look at neighborhoods of interest, and I think that goes into what Ms. Sistrunk's talking about, how does that factor in? And I'll use Ward 4, for example. You know, that by and large was a very concise, perhaps neighborhood of interest for the past 10 years based on voting age, et cetera, and that changes somewhat. How does that factor into the analysis from, because it's easy to establish the jurisdiction of a historic district, but knowing that voting age doesn't play too well in the overall processing of the database and the lines.
That's right. The percentages all come from total population. But, a 1-month-old has the same representation as a 80-year-old. So
Right.
that's how the percentages and the population numbers and all of this is figured. But the voting age does play a role too. But in trying to keep neighborhoods of interest together, I would just need to know the neighborhoods that we wanted to keep intact or the historic areas that we wanted to keep.
And can you define those based on voting age, or does it have to be something as definitive as a historic district, et cetera?
No, you can keep age for any block on any particular area, because that's the way the Census Bureau counts people, is by how many people are there, and then they count everybody above that's 18 years old, and the blocks have all that in the document. So I would be able to show that. Now, the historic districts don't follow census block boundaries. The blocks have to be split, and then that you have to count the homes, or that's normally the way we do it. It's an efficient way. It's not the only way to split blocks and count. The other way would be go door to door, take a survey.
But as far as voting age, your only break point is over 18. You don't have a filter there of being able to work through a neighborhood of interest based on student population or other types of things there.
That's right. There is no, within the census data, they do not ask whether you're a student and people that are students today may not be students at the end of the year.
Right.
Or 2 years from now. So it's a fairly flowing population. Students don't just live in one area, they live all over town.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? All right, seeing none, Mr. Sanford, where do we go from here?
From here, I believe we should get public input.
Okay.
We should have our first public hearing. We'll schedule, have 2 weeks of notification, have a public hearing however you like. We could do it as a separate meeting from this, or you could have it during your normal board meeting, and then get the public input and see what the public has to say about this plan, or all three plans. And they could even bring their own plans. So that's part of you have to take in the public input, and then we would meet again. I would suggest we meet in a work session with all the board members, and we sit down and we take in the public comments and then the board members and see what to go for.
Okay. So we probably need to have a public hearing sooner rather than later if we've got a work session forthcoming after that.
So we'll take this map forward to the public hearing, then we will regroup in a work session to modify a map based on our input and
the
citizens'
public's
input.
That's right.
And then we'll have a second public hearing producing or showing the final product based on that, the work session and the first public hearing. Okay.
And then if everything comes together, the board adopts the plan after all that, and we send it to the Department of Justice for pre-clearance.
Is there any objection from the members of the board to holding a public hearing at the next board meeting? That would be the first Tuesday in May.
I will not be here if it's the 1st or the 4th. I'm going to be in Biloxi for conference.
Will you be here the third Tuesday in May?
Yes, I will.
All right. Is there any objection to holding the first public hearing on this matter the third Tuesday in May? Any objection?
Capital spending plan. Will we be doing anything with capital spending plan by then?
Potentially, yeah. We could have a
Just
public
alone,
hearing on.
just alone
Yeah.
meeting?
But we really need to do this by then, because that gets us into June before we've had the hearing and the work session. All right, so we're going to go ahead and calendar that public hearing for the third Tuesday in May.
Third Tuesday in May.
Okay.
One other thing that I handed out, and this is just a table that I usually give out, I didn't have it the last time, I don't believe, but it just tells you how the city of Starkville changed in 10 years, how each ward, which wards lost population by ward. You can see that Ward 1 gained the most, which is clear in this table, because that ward is 1,700 people too many above, and then you can see by this table that shows right there, the green ones all show negative values, the blue ones all show positive values. That just shows you how the population changed in the last 10 years. And that was just for you. About the historic areas, I would need somebody that could mark all that on a map, or if you have a map of them, and then addresses of the people that you want to keep within the district.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sanford.
Yes, sir. I will leave all of this.
Sure.
Got a little warped due to the rain.
Mounted on the wall.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Contact me if y'all need it.
Thank you.
All right, the next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of the letter of engagement from T.E. Lott. Alderman Sistrunk.
I move approval of authorizing the mayor to sign the letter of engagement with T.E. Lott and Associates for the internal control audit.
Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to approve of the authorization of the mayor to sign the letter of engagement as presented with T. Lott and Associates for the internal control audit. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Sistrunk, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I'd just like to remind the board that this is formalizing something that we agreed to do earlier. So it is just authorizing the mayor to sign a letter of engagement, which came from our earlier vote to go forward with this review. We are not outsourcing any services with this. We are simply trying to provide some additional assistance on a short-term basis for a very specific process to the city clerk's office.
Discussion. Alderman Vaughn.
Is this matter really that serious that we have to have somebody look over the city clerk them shoulder? I notice a lot of times we say that we don't have money to do this and we don't have money to do that, but now here we double dipping. We paying the city clerk and her staff to do this, and now we finna pay somebody else and their staff to do this. So in other words, we double dipping. That's just like me if my kid's supposed to ask me for something, and then I keep telling them I don't have it, and every time I look around, I'm buying something new. I'm buying something new, but I'm telling my kids I don't have it. And that's just the way we do at this board. We tell the citizen and constituent that we don't have money. We don't have money. But every time we look around, we finding money to do something that I don't agree with, because that's what we paying the city clerk and her staff for. And I don't see why should we be outside getting somebody else to look over their shoulder. So in other words, we paying two people. We paying the city clerk and her staff. Now we paying an outsider to come in and look over her shoulder. So in other words, we double dipping. But we tell the constituents and the citizens one thing, but we sure can find money to spend on unnecessary things. That's what I call it, unnecessary thing, because this is double dipping to me. And if the city clerk and her staff doing that bad, maybe we need to change people's in there instead of going out finding somebody else. If it's that bad, then we got to find somebody to come outside. All these years, this has never happened. I'm just trying to wonder why is it happening now? Because of one error. Because of one error, we had to go outside and find somebody to look over their shoulder. I don't agree with that. And for this reason, I cannot and will not support this.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Saying none. All those in favor of Alderman Sistrunk's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
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 By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of the reorganization of the city clerk's office.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Perkins.
ahead, Mark. Before Ms. Outlaw starts, we'll let her sit there at the table so we can, when she make a presentation for us, please.
Okay. Ms. Outlaw is going to move out front to make a presentation using PowerPoint.
Well, good evening to all of you I hadn't greeted this evening. And I just want to start by first giving you my objective. It's my objective to reorganize the city clerk's office to effectuate not only a more positive working environment, but a more productive one as well. My goal is to streamline the processes involved in routine activities, as well as provide you, the board, an effective tool to assist you in your efforts of strategic planning. The city has grown in current processes as well. And we're trying to do more with less. Although we're still effective, we remain effective only because of extended work hours from the clerks in the office. The dedication of the employees in the city clerk's office is unimaginable. It's incredible and somewhat unique. We work tirelessly, relentlessly and our last audit, we got yet another clean audit, and we work diligently toward that effort. I had hoped to present this reorganization last June, but I just couldn't find it fitted into the schedule of an ever array of challenges, requests, emergencies, and just things that crop up at the, and consume weeks of time. I have put together a short presentation, and this is the current what you see now is our current organizational chart. And if you'll see that the city clerk is the first line supervisor, and the department head as well. That in itself was it's not a good organizational chart. We have the city accountant that has the city's finances. We have the deputy clerk, administrative assistant to the city clerk, and she also serves as a purchasing agent. We have the other deputy clerks, accounts receivable, our payroll, our payables, and our records clerk. And then we had two experienced works participants, and one of those you did allow us to make them part-time, so now we have the one experienced works and one part-time person. This is the proposed organizational chart. We have our operations manager, finance manager, two deputy clerks. That's going to be your AP clerk, accounts payable, and AR, which is accounts receivable, the custodian, the receptionist, and experienced work participant. I'm proposing that the payroll clerk, who's currently a deputy in the city clerk's office, be moved to the human resource office or to personnel. And the intern position there is just hopeful. I had spoken with someone out on campus about an intern in accounting, and that person would be responsible for helping to analyze the data to get to the board that you could utilize in your planning. And I've heard the question of, well, what's the purpose of reorganizing? As I stated earlier, my objective to streamlining the processes And that's what it is, just to streamline the processes involved in routine activities and to provide this board with the tools they need to make the decisions necessary to keep the city moving forward. The benefits of reorganizing: we will eliminate a position, thereby reducing personnel costs. It affords the clerk's office to provide the desired data to the board that I'm finding the board is requesting. Allows the opportunity for regular individualized meetings with department heads regarding budget issues, rather than at the year's end, which we currently do. It reduces audit costs by approximately $8,000. With the clerk's office being responsible for preparing our Gatsby 34 report that currently our auditor prepares for us, and the depreciation schedule. That would save us approximately $8,000. It strengthens the city's audit as it pertains to grant administration. And as I said, our audit has been strong for the last 4 years, but our grant administration, our auditor tells us that we're having some weaknesses there that could be improved upon. And with the duties that we're changing or reallocating and reassigning, then that should strengthen our grant administration. Job descriptions. We are rewriting job descriptions to include the proposed additional duties that you have in your packet. The proposed job description for each position remains the same, but there are additions that we have included that the position that we're eliminating will be spread throughout the office. We've modified job titles to accurately reflect the responsibilities of those positions, those newly positions with new duties. Salary adjustments. I have included an updated salary structure to reflect the additional duties and responsibilities. Keeping in mind that we are reducing the staff by a position and utilizing some of those funds for that purpose. And I know that you're asking, how can this be accomplished? And I believe that by utilizing resources already established to assist in processing city procurements, you will hear from someone that has a procurement program that can assist the city with its procurement functions, which will alleviate a lot of the functions, routine functions that we have with procurement. We'll realign and reallocate the duties and responsibilities in the office. And we'll implement a more effective organizational chart. And we'll relocate payroll and related functions to personnel. With those things, those items that I'm proposing, I believe that we can have the city clerk's office more productive, more efficient. And I do want to say that the city clerk's office with the employees there work well together. We work as one and as a team. And that's how we get things done with even short staff. With that, I ask the board to approve the reorganization.
Mr. Mayor, be recognized.
Alderman Dumas.
I just got one. As you talk about lengthy hours and overworked employees, those kind of things, how does losing one employee help you in that regard?
Because if this reorganization is approved, we will have our processing for procurements that's a part of this, that will be that will be performed by Mr. Adams.
And so
And
all
with that-
procurement will be outsourced?
With that, he'll take on the processes and procedures, the routine processes and procedures, and work directly with the purchasing agent that we have now. So the city will retain its responsibility over purchasing. Only the processes will be done by Mr. Adams.
So as far as accounts payable, payroll, receivings clerk, one of those will maintain a purchasing side or function to work with Mr. Adams?
Our current purchasing agent, which is the administrative assistant at this point.
Was she shown on your, she's just shown as the general receptionist, or
No,
was she shown on this map? I don't see that on the,
The new one she would be.
Yes.
on the new one.
Operations manager on the new one.
Oh, so she goes administrative assistant to operations.
Right.
Okay. So she would have the purchasing role.
That's correct.
And then last question, how does technology play into this with the technology work that or the software improvements and other things we've included?
Well, because we've, with the software, it has, it allows us to reallocate time. And this is how this will work, is because the position that we're eliminating, some of those duties and functions will be moved to the other clerks in the office.
Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Allen, I just want to have a little dialogue with you. I got several questions about your proposed reorganization proposal. Are you telling the board tonight that you do not have the proper staff to fulfill the duties and functions of purchasing and procurement for the city of Starkville?
No, sir.
Well, you're asking the board to send those duties and functions outside of your office. So what is it that your staff cannot do that you have so much confidence in for an outside person to do that your staff cannot do?
No, my staff is perfectly capable of procurement, and we have done so, throughout the years. This was in an effort to, on a tight budget, try to save some costs.
Ms. Howell, let's get to the point. I mean, first of all, I don't think this is a good plan. Now, let me ask you this now. So you want to try to let me believe that you got a good staff that can do these functions, but yet you want us to send these functions outside City Hall. Now, city government function needs to be done by city staff. Now, I'm not convinced that you have given any reason as to why procurement and purchasing should go outside City Hall. Now, you're talking about got an administrative assistant, she gonna do something in the office. Well, why send it out if she's gonna do something? If she has the skills and the abilities and the talents to do it, why do we need to send this outside of City Hall?
Because we were trying to get the grants where we were weak on our audit. We were trying to get our grants to where we're strengthened in that area. And with doing so, the person that's doing the procurement now will have to be the one to take over the grants and administer the grants. And she just wouldn't be able to do them both.
Ms. Outlaw, you have 6 people currently in your office, including yourself. Now, when I voted to hire you in 2004 as city clerk, and I was a very key vote to your becoming city clerk.
Thank you.
And you made it real clear to us then that you were capable of ensuring that the office of the city clerk was run properly and efficiently. And the problem that I'm having is you're telling us in your mission statement, so you have a positive work environment and can do this. I don't understand why you don't have the staff to do this when the city in a prior administration, we voted to relinquish the tax collection at a sum certain to the city of to Octavia Hall County, and now we don't have the staff, we don't have the time, we're too busy, we can't get anything done. And it's just not personal to you, Ms. Outlaw. This is personal to me as it relates to the taxpayers. Now, you know, it seems to me that your staff should have the time to do it. You don't have tax collection anymore. So therefore, the work should get done, and if it's not getting done, it's something wrong. So my question to you as the city clerk is why are we not getting the work done? We don't have tax collection. We should have a lot of time to get this work done in an 8 to 5 work day if productivity is being demanded.
Maybe you misunderstood me.
I'm not misunderstanding. My question to you is why do we need to do all of this? You got 6 people in your office. You don't have tax collections. Why are we not getting the work done with what we got?
We are getting the work done. That's what I said. Maybe you misunderstood me. We are getting the work done. It's not that the work is not being done. We're saying that if we're going to eliminate a position, then we'll have to do something else. There's no way we can get it done with less. And to eliminate the position, we'll need something. And purchasing and procurement was the item that we could use because we had contact with someone that was, well versed in Mississippi procurement.
And now you have come to the board. You have gotten this employee after the exit of the last payroll clerk. We've gotten somebody transferred into the payroll position. You've gotten employees time and time again. We after a lot of discussion at this table, and of course when you get employees, and it's always seemed like a department head should want to keep the employees. My question to you is, why do you think it's in the best interest of the city of Starkville to send a payroll clerk that is under your supervision, that has city clerk duties, a deputy court clerk, to another department? I mean, what's the justification for that? I haven't even heard anything to justify that.
Well, now that was just because payroll, personnel, a lot of the functions, duties that she performed are pretty much human resource type duties.
Well, why you didn't tell us that when we hired her? Why we didn't just send before you came to this board and asked us to hire her? Why you didn't tell us at that point? She's only been on the city payroll for less than a year. Why you didn't tell us that then?
Well, at the time, I was not working on a reorganization. I just started back in June trying to get a reorganization of the office.
But you were city clerk then, right?
That's correct.
And you was over that office then, right?
That is correct.
Well, you need to tell us these things. And the discomfort I'm having, city clerk, is that over the years, the requests come to this board where we're busy, we need this employee, we got to have this, and we bow down and send the tax collection 2 blocks over to the county courthouse, and we still don't have time to run the office. I'm tired of hearing all this stuff. I'm just sick and tired of it, and that reorganization plan is not going to work. Now, the bottom line with that reorganization plan, what's happening is we get more money. We want to give the administrative assistant more money, just another salary adjustment. I'm not in favor for no other city employee to get another penny. I'm not voting for it. Now, when she became administrative assistant, when that position was first created some years ago, that she got the adjustment in the salary because of the extra duties that she would have. Now, if she were to get that position, the next thing we're going to say, well, we're overworked. We need more money. Just like the last proposal we had when it came to the board, we gave some more money for the minutes. We gave some money setting up the tables. We gave so much money for doing this, and now we still want more money. It's just not coming to an end. We changed these titles. We put flowers to these titles. We dress it up as much as we can. And they're getting these positions when the money gets old and the same amount, we want more money. I don't see any justification for that. And then we have you want to do that for the administrative assistant. You want to do that for the current accountant. You want to do that for the accounts payable clerk. Ms. Outlaw, I don't see any justification. Now, what I want you to explain to me further, in your mission statement, you say that the reorganization is to help promote a positive working environment. So the question is, can we not promote a positive working environment without having to reorganize the office of the city clerk?
That's in addition to effectuating more productivity as well.
Well, let's camp out there. we can promote more productivity. We can promote efficiency. We can promote hard work without a reorganization. The only thing we do is just tell these employees, get to work on time and get the work done. We can't spend all day at lunch hour. We can't take off on Fridays and Mondays and at the end of the month. That's how we get the work done. I'm talking not only to y'all, but the whole city of Starkville, but your project and matter is at the table now. And I'm just going to cut to the bottom line with you. I'm just going to shoot straight with you. You know you expect nothing less from me, Dan. Nothing personal, clerk. I have told Ms. Brewer about that. And I don't try to micromanage, that's not my role. But and nothing personal, clerk. But if we come to work on time, and the work they don't start at 8:30, at 8:15, 8:10, it starts at 8 o'clock. And the lunch hour don't last from mid-morning till that evening, or more than an hour. We got to have some discipline about coming to work. You see, those of us who are used to making a payroll or having to work for ourselves, we understand that. And the taxpayers demand the same level of responsibility. So, and it also takes a commitment of the staff, because a lot of times, the staff is, you may have people out of your office, they may not be there, somebody gone somewhere on a vacation, and then Miss Spruill, I don't have time to get to work. Miss Spruill, and Miss Spruill. If we just commit ourselves to the office, we can get it done. And the whole thing about this office, this productivity, this efficiency in getting the work done, it just takes getting it done. I deal with that all day long. It just takes hard work. And when you work hard, you can get these things done. And not complain about it, clerk. And the staff, it starts from the top, goes all the way down. All of this dressed up reorganization, you want to send the procurement out, you want to send the purchasing out, do it here. The taxpayers demand this from the governing body. The taxpayers don't need all this procurement and purchasing out at Mississippi State or wherever it is to go. We to do that ourselves. And the buck starts at the top. We have to be held accountable. They hold us accountable. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but the taxpayers hold me accountable. And so I demand nothing less from you or from other department heads. I treat everybody the same who sit at that chair and ask for stuff. So what we need to do is, we don't need to be, work hard to get all these employees in your office. Now Mayor and Boyd, y'all hire, I ask y'all to hire these people, and we go through all this discussion about this last person that you want to send up to Mr. Brandon Boyd's office, all this, about this salary issue. The salary went up thousands of dollars. We supported, you needed this person. And now, Mayor Boyd, well, we thank you for the adjustment, but I don't need the employee anymore. She's not needed in my office anymore. That does not add up, clerk. You want to get rid of that employee. Now we just approved a temporary full-time person for you just a few meetings ago. So you got your temporary to help out on your load there. So that person helps out on your load there. You send this payroll clerk up to the Mr. Personnel office, and then, well, I want to send procurement and purchasing. After a while, the whole city clerk going to be on the wagon and going across town. And the taxpayer going to send us across town if we ship this city clerk's office out of the city hall or out of the city government. That's not how city government is to work and to operate. Now, you may say I'm giving you a hard time, but this is just Alderman Perkins. I'm just sorry. This is just my duty. I'm going to do it. Now, we go further, and we talk about, all these things that the accountant, we want to change her name to something fancy. I don't know what it is, but if it's something in accounting and if it's something in budgeting, that should be her job anyway. Sometimes we just got to, we just can't be just so tied in with what this not my job duty, this not my job duty. Let's get the work done, because we are on a team, and we're on a family together, and we're glad to have a job. And then again, You know, and if you give them this money, then before this term is out, then there's Mr. Brewer, Mr. Mayor, well, you know, we need some more money. We need some more help. I'm tired of this needing. When we got rid of the tax collection, it was the intent of that board, and you remember the conversation that it was not just Alderman Perkins, it was down this table. It was down this table, and you know the story. There was some strong discussion by a majority of this board at that time about once we got rid of the tax collection that your office should be able to do and fulfill whatever duties and functions that were required. And now we're back in 2012 having that same discussion. Now, you know, this may pass, you know, but I'm not, you know, my thing is just to do my part. And because I know the history of that, you know, and if we can, and sometimes when employees ask to go on leave, and I'm not the department head, sometimes the leave has to be flagged. You come up here sometimes, you know, the employee gone and they out somewhere. Well, we're short-staffed. We're working so hard. Well, let's maybe we have to reorganize and restructure how we go about doing things. So the bottom line, from what I understand about your proposal, you want to help bring about a better working relationship, better productivity, better efficiency in the office. But you want to go about doing it by sending purchasing and procurement out. You want to send the payroll clerk up to Mr. Personnel Officer. The board just by a vote of 4-2 tonight approved for TE Lot Company to come in and give you some oversight on the financial and accounting at $131 an hour for a projection of 75 to 100 hours plus out-of-pocket expenses and another little cushion in case there's some built-in expenses there. And then in your proposal, it don't stop there. Then you have already talked to somebody about an intern. We just gonna never have enough people to do the work. You know, it would just suited me if this matter wasn't even on the agenda tonight. You know, I mean, it would have suited me if it had been pulled from the agenda. You may have the support, but my job is to look at it on the merits, clerk. I mean, I'm still going to speak, I'm going to talk, but my job is to look at it on the merits. And I don't think that this thing is meritorious. I think we can get the job done. We got 6 people right now, city clerks. You got 5 full-time people in your office, including yourself, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you have 1 temporary full-time employee that, in my opinion, you're going to be coming back to us at some point, probably asking us to fill that position. So, and then there are 2 people who are out there to answer the telephone. Because and I'm glad that I get them to talk to, because if I wouldn't have talked to them ladies, I tell you, I said, Miss Spruill, I said, is anybody working up here today? I said, man. And I just don't have time to shut my office down and come here and talk to somebody. If I didn't have Ms. Brewer talk to her, I just have to, I don't know. I just couldn't communicate to nobody about the city of Starkville's business. I mean, the ladies that answered the phone up here, I said, will you transfer me to this office in the city clerk? This is the voicemail. Transfer me, I said, another time, transfer me to somebody. This is the voicemail of. Transfer me again. This is the voicemail of. So maybe nobody here at work. Maybe that's why we need people. You know. So I know the history of it. I'm not voting for it. It's not a good proposal. It's not substantive. It lacks merit. It's not good for the taxpayers. I may be the only somebody who can feel this way. But I think you got the 6 people. When we got rid of the tax collections, we left enough a time for y'all to get your work done, because there was a lengthy discussion. I'm sure that discussion is still in your mind, back in your mind about that discussion. And when we hired you, and we appreciate what you've done, and we made it clear that that we want you to run that office. And you know the story on all that, but we appreciate you for that. But I just don't think that what you're proposing is going to work. I think the best thing to do. And of course, is to just, you're the chief. Tell these people, what they got to do. Give the necessary oversight, and just keep the hammer down on them. It'll get done. You know, I mean, it just makes take working real hard all day long. So that's what they get paid for. That's why they get the taxpayers' monies. And all this, you know, and I just don't see this money being paid to these other people. They just got a 3% pay raise in January. So, but I think in closing him as outlaw, I think with you know, this, we don't need to outsource this. And even if we didn't outsource purchasing procurement, we don't need to be sending those. I think, you know, just from my knowledge of city government, I think what needs to happen is we just need to make sure that the staff that we have given you, and you don't have the tax collection, that they get the job done. You know, if you see somebody that's not doing their work, not saying they're not, just say, look, this got to be done. And once that is done, then the work gets done. So, you know, and also I question the timeliness of this proposal. You know, you're wanting to bring it back in June of last year. And you know, you bring it here now, and I question all that intent. I don't. That's not well received with all the programs. I see through a lot of things, and I know a lot of things about this. So you know, I don't think that this. You know, I don't think that this. My personal opinion, and I'm not going to elaborate no further than this. I don't think that this is your idea. You disagree with me. I already know that. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that. And for you to tell me, if you were to tell me otherwise, what you already have told me, I still don't agree with you, and I don't believe it. So, not trying to give you a hard time here, but my job is to, you know, I mean, I'm not treating you no different from anybody else. When Mr. Kemp, when Mr. Elected Department Manager brought his up here, I had the same scrutiny. When anybody else come bring theirs up here, if I don't like it, I give the same scrutiny. I'm not picking on you. I'm just a straight. I plow straight. I talk straight. You know, because if I can't fulfill my duties, clerk, as you well know, this job, you know, I mean, it's no longer for me if I can't perform my job. You know, if I can't just do what the taxpayers send me here, I don't need to be here. And so hopefully I'll be remembered that way, you know, when I'm no longer here, that I gave the best of service, and that's what I'm going to do while I'm here. And, you know, I often tell them I'm not here for my health, because if that was the case, I wouldn't be here. But at the same time, you know, I mean, I don't think that this is a good proposal, and I say these things constructively. I'm not trying to make you look little, clerk, or belittle you, but I think we need to look at things realistically. We need to look at things on the merit. We need to see what this thing is best for the city. You know, not try to fulfill any agendas. You know, is this workable? Is this going to get the job done? You know, this is not the time to experiment. You know, we need to get work. We need to get productivity. We need to get efficiency. And all this needs to be stayed in the city of Starkville. And we need to get that done. And we don't need to privatize anything out. And the last final words here is that I don't think it's working. I know in one instance back in the early 90s, the board had talked about privatizing the janitorial service here at City Hall. The board said no. There was some discussion about privatizing the sanitation services. The board said no. And the board did agree to, for some brief period of time, to privatize the debris collection. But where is that now? That's back under our jurisdiction. Why? Because that board said we want to have control. We want to dictate. We want to have that level of authority. So in case we need to get something done, we can make it happen. See, without having even the debris collection now. You know, we have a problem, the alderman, Ms. Spruill, and she'll make sure that whatever their operation, I don't dictate to her, but whatever they do, that's what they do. So, but with all those reasons, clerk, you know, I think that we need to defeat your reorganization plan or not take any action on it. And I think, you know, and I say it respectfully, but I'm gonna live with what, you know, I'm gonna live with what the board say, cause I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna try to get me some rest tonight, okay? And I'm not gonna be bothered. I just do my job while I'm here. But I think you need to just make sure your office is staffed properly, and once it's staffed properly, you just, as the leader and the person that we have vested to be in charge of the office, you just need to make sure that the work is done, and it's done in a timely manner. If that's done, you're not gonna have any more problems. And then when they start asking you about some more money, say, look, the board gave us 3%, and I don't anticipate anymore unless the board tell you something else. That's just the bottom line. So, but for those things that's being said, with all those things said, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to yield the floor. Thank you.
Alderman Vaughn.
I got a couple of questions. I'm not gonna say too much, but you say you're gonna move Ms. Howard to personnel. What would the city of Starkville gain by you moving her to personnel?
It's just to have the functions of human resources up in the human resource department. We have a lot of traffic coming in because of human resources, and that's what they're coming there for. And with that being in the personnel department, it just seemed like that was a good fit.
Okay. And did you say somebody eliminated employee? You were talking about Ms. Howard, right? Eliminating out your office?
No, we have a records clerk that, because of reallocating duties with the software and being able to reallocate time, duties to those other clerks in the office. But it would only work if we can have procurement moved, because we're trying to get when the audit came back and he did say some of our weaker points was the grant administration. We were trying to come up with an avenue to where we could administer the grants, have everything ready, and not be so weak in that department.
And you say by organizing this, reorganizing this here, it will streamline your department.
That's correct.
But you already know how I feel about outsourcing. If it's gonna streamline your department, why would you outsource? The board know how I feel about outsourcing, because I came from an outsourced situation. I already know about outsourcing. And so if it's gonna streamline your department, why would you outsource it?
We're in an effort to strengthen our grant administration. We wouldn't be able to move grants to one location, which is what our auditor is saying that we really have to look at doing without hiring a grant administrator.
I've seen outsourcing done numerous of times, and numerous of times I saw people went out of business. You keep outsourcing, next thing you know, there won't be no city hall. The whole city hall will be outsourced. I saw it work, because that's why I'm unemployed right now, because I saw it work. And what Sarah Lee did, Sarah Lee started with one department, another department, next thing you know, Sarah Lee was out of business. I saw it happen. I know what's gonna happen. And you know I'm not gonna support this anyway, because I already told you I'm not gonna support this. I cannot. And your restructuring, the salary, I want to do that. I want to help you gladly with that. But you got attachment with outsourcing, and with that attachment with outsourcing, I can't support none of it, because this is gonna come with it. I know it is. I'm through, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion.
How does moving the clerk into the personnel office, how does that affect their budget? Or
Well, I mean, the dollars will go there with them. I mean, no, we didn't affect them at all.
Okay.
And it should be noted, because I don't think it's been discussed yet, that this would result in a net savings of $5,000. The way that it does that is you eliminate one position that currently salary and benefits is a $38,000 position, and you take on additional salaries because you're consolidating duties with remaining personnel, and then you bring in the additional cost of $7,000 for the internal procurement service. Once all that's finished, you have a net savings of $5,000.
Not counting the part-time help that you might need.
The part-time.
Does that include the part-time help that?
No, the part-time help is already, you've already approved the part-time help some meetings ago.
You talking about experienced work?
Yes.
No, I'm talking about,
The intern.
No, the intern is a position that's not paid. She's volunteered.
I understand.
And Ms. Howell, let me just say, since there's been plenty of discussion, that I think you've done an excellent job with this. And I think you've done something that makes financial sense, it makes operational sense, and I think in an instance like this, it ought to be the will of the governing body to give a department manager that brings a plan that makes a lot of sense and is within their realm of expertise, give it the opportunity to work. So I hope the board will do that. Further discussion?
I have just,
Alderman Sister.
I just have a couple of quick questions. How many hours do you think we currently spend on these internal procurement processes that you were talking about?
Probably annually, source of supply is our big one that we can actually spend months on, after we get them bid out and back in and tabulated. So if I would have to say about 200 hours, so somewhere, because we spend months on source of supply, and then we have it twice a year. And
10% of one person's job.
Or better.
2,080 would be a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least 10%, at least.
And the other question I have is, one of the things that you're proposing is to bring some things in-house, the GASB 34 statements, to work on the depreciation schedule, which is an ongoing issue
Right.
with the audit, to do some additional refinement of presentation of financial statements, to have some one-on-one meetings with department heads to help them with their managing of their budgets. How many hours do you estimate all of that will take?
Because we were only looking at the department heads and only going through the parts of the budget that seems to be problematic. I really wasn't expecting that to take a lot of time. I was not, it was not my intent to do it, just delve into their whole budget, just only those problem areas.
Okay.
So I wouldn't put in a lot of time
So that
associated with that.
That might trade off for the procurement time, and still have a few hours left over. How about the GASB 34?
Now that, of course, I would get with our current auditor and go through and to make sure that we understood that we would put in the GASB 34 report together in accurately. So with that, I wouldn't be able to give you a time on that until I spoke with him.
Okay. And you don't know about the other items probably either.
Now the depreciation schedule, that's something that we'll just incorporate ongoing, and so it'll take time to get it started first, but after that I'm not anticipating. Once we get it set and started, I don't anticipate, because we have all the numbers there ourselves.
And then the I think what you were calling in your job description, mini audits, which I presume are like an internal audit of
Yes.
grants. Any idea about how much
Now,
time that would take?
I think those will take time, because with our grants, we currently have, with the one we got tonight, we have 11 open grants. And that will take some time, because we'll have to get the file in shape first.
So you're talking about outsourcing 200 hours, a little more, eliminating a position completely, and taking on additional work, and you've not quantified those hours just yet.
Well, yes, because the the additional work that we're taking on between the accountant and the administrative assistant, we should be able to easily take those tasks with the procurement, of course, being.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion?
I got one more question. I just feel like this is back to just double dipping, like I was saying. We still paying the city clerk department, and now we gonna still pay him for outsourcing. They're just double dipping. But when you get down to the constituents and the taxpayer, we say we don't have it, but we can find money to double dip. We can find money to just give away. I don't see it. I mean, that's not what we elected here for, just to throw the taxpayer money away. That's not what we elected for. I don't see it. It's bad business. Bad business.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Outlaw.
Can we take a break?
Yeah.
A short
Without
break?
objection, we'll move into a brief recess. Any objection? Any objection?
Mayor, before we move to recess, is there going to be a motion, anything, or no motion? I think
There was no motion. Discussion died on the topic. Yeah.
Okay.
You would like to make one? I'll
No,
entertain it.
I'm just asking for the chair. I just want to get some clarity.
Yeah.
So in other words,
That topic has been exhausted.
So we through with this agenda item for tonight.
We are.
Thank you.
Can we put on then that I advertise for the two positions that I need
Have to amend the agenda. Let's do it when we come back after recess.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not.
Any objection to moving to brief recess? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, we'll stand in recess. 3,
He's practicing
2,
for having a child.
1. Meeting will now come back to order, and we will continue with the agenda. Next matter on the agenda is a consideration of approval of contract with, it's actually Public Procurement Services for a cooperative purchasing agreement. Now, this is different than the matter that we just discussed related to the city clerk's reorganization. This matter relates back to a presentation that we heard from Mr. Adams back in January at a regional meeting that involved the cities and counties in the Golden Triangle. You remember that meeting, the presentations were split. Mimo Parisi made a presentation on metropolitan planning organizations and opportunities for regional collaboration within the Golden Triangle. Taylor Adams made a presentation on potential opportunities to do cooperative procurement amongst the government entities within the cities and counties, which is a really novel idea. And let me just say an introduction to Mr. Adams, because I'm going to let him talk about the nuances of this, because he can get about 10 layers deeper than I can. We are very fortunate to have Mr. Adams in our community. I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say he is one of the foremost authorities on public procurement in the state of Mississippi. Has chaired the state organization for public procurement, and it was his novel for this area idea that actually boils down to something that's quite simple in principle, that there is an opportunity by pooling some purchasing amongst multiple government jurisdictions to buy more, thereby lowering cost. Almost uniformly, the more you buy of a product, the lower cost you're able to attain it at. And of course, cities rely on bulk purchasing in just about everything that we do. The idea behind cooperative procurement is combining efforts of multiple cities. You can buy even more, and the cost will be even lower. But it does take a work product and some know-how in combining those jurisdictions. And we're lucky that Taylor has a service that he is prepared to offer. And I'll also note the city of Columbus has already taken this matter up, and they have passed, I believe unanimously, the interlocal agreement to do cooperative purchasing with Starkville and a contract with Mr. Adams for him to serve as their agent. I'm asking the same thing tonight, that we enter into an interlocal agreement that would be the same interlocal agreement Columbus is in. Now, that agreement would be between us, and enter into a contract with Mr. Adams so he can serve as our agent as well, combining purchasing opportunities that over the long haul are going to save us money as a city. And I'm going to let Taylor explain how this works.
First, Mr. Mayor, Board of Alderman, Mr. Attorney, Madam Clerk, thank you all for letting me be here this evening. And Mayor, I think you hit the nail right on the head in describing what we're doing. In essence, what we're talking about, just as a quick refresher, is taking the volumes that Starkville is currently applying to sort of their purchasing endeavors, looking at the same items that Columbus is purchasing, and then combining that volume under sort of a single menu of contracts to allow for better pricing across the board. Another key piece is sort of in the contract that in conversation with the clerk here and with the clerk in Columbus discovered that there was perhaps interest in a procurement card program. In doing that, as neither city has one presently, there is quite a bit of sort of audit guideline that and basically procedures and manuals and forms that the state of Mississippi wants you to have in place if you're going to undertake that program. So I included that in the contract just sort of as an aside, but basically an additional deliverable for you all. But the bulk of this program will focus on the savings that potentially can be experienced by both municipalities through combined volume. I saw the interview that you gave sort of the local media, and again, you hit the nail on this. This sort of can span the range of acquisitions from something as simple as office supplies, pencils, or what you used in the interview, all the way up to if you wanted big ticket items, one-off purchases. Basically, that involves aligning equipment schedules. Clearly, the more expensive the item, the more complex the acquisition is, and the more difficult it can be to align acquisition schedules, but also the greater potential return. So that's, but certainly nothing. I guess nothing would be exempt in the initial sort of in this initial look. I think it's important to note for you all and for your department heads, we're not talking about something that would require mandatory participation. I'll produce first based on the state contract system, but then also after conversation with your designees, a list of priorities. Columbus has already quickly indicated, for example, that they would like to see increased participation in the MDA, Mississippi Development Authority's defined historically underutilized business community. If that were a priority for Starkville as well, then we would certainly we would target vendors and contracts in that space. But even then, we're not talking about mandatory participation. We're just talking about contracts that your department heads may opt to use or opt not to use. Certainly, we would hope that they would choose to use them, as we believe that the greater the volume, the greater the savings. But that sort of is a high-level refresher on what we're talking about.
Discussion. Alderman Sistrum.
I have one question. First, one of the things I think that we talked about when we had that regional meeting and you made your presentation was that there was a possibility of being able to encourage more local business too, and dealing more with local and, like you said, maybe historically underutilized vendors.
That's correct. The local participation piece would certainly be a key tenet. If that comes into that conversation that I would have with your designee, that also is at the top of the list in Columbus. So yes, and the example that I gave is there are already state contract vendors that are represented here locally, or vendors. For example, here in Starkville, Sullivan's is well acquainted with the state contract system and is very comfortable delivering at that state contract price, where there's a great local vendor that you can use legally already. And so yes, local vendor participation would be a substantial part of this initiative.
And then I actually had two questions. I'm sorry, I fibbed. The other part of the other question I have is that this is a new service that will be adding to what happens in the city.
That's correct. If you'll remember the initial conversation that we had, and this is going back to that first presentation at the regional meeting. Ideally, this would work as an out-to-in type of arrangement. I mean, as neither Columbus nor Starkville have something like this, and really, to my knowledge, I don't know that there would be a cooperative agreement like this in place anywhere in Mississippi between. There may be, but I would just be unaware of it. But the idea would be, in its infancy, I would sort of do the legwork for you, sort of build the programs, get the volumes up, and get the savings to a point where hopefully, in a later phase, this function would actually roll on to, basically it'd be a partial funding from one of the municipalities to support their portion of it. But at some point there would be potential, if the board so chose to do, to make this an actual function of the government. And I would hope that that's what would happen, because I think that's where you can really start experiencing savings.
Alderman Parker?
And this is a flat fee service, right?
That's correct.
Not commission based, it's not.
No, and the reason that, Alderman Parker, the reason that we built it that way is so that actually it is a flat maximum fee.
Right.
Should additional municipalities choose to become a party to the interlocal agreement, the fee for Starkville will actually go down each time. The idea would be that actually your cost, as volumes grew, your cost, even as they related to me, would go down, but they would never go up.
And that's something that, I know this is far reaching, but is this something that could extend as far as insurance services, as far as health or?
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that question,
but
certainly be something interesting to pursue. If we could.
Certainly, I think it would be worth having that conversation with your provider and with your human resource staff. But I don't know that I would be qualified to answer that without research.
Alderman Sistro.
I move approval of the contract with Taylor Adams as presented at our desk, for cooperative purchasing services, and a joint resolution with the City of Columbus, I'm having difficulty, and an interlocal agreement with the City of Columbus for cooperative purchasing authority.
Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to approve of a contract with Public Procurement Services for a cooperative purchasing agreement, a joint resolution between Starkville and Columbus for cooperative purchasing authority, and an interlocal agreement between Starkville and Columbus for the cooperative purchasing system. As presented on the table. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion?
I think that's the gist of it, yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Sistrunk, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Discussion.
Has and the city attorney has reviewed each agreement?
Correct.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Sistrunk's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Nay. By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Marquita, these are the versions as presented at the table. Those are the ones on the table.
The next matter on the agenda is the discussion and consideration of calling a public hearing to amend the City of Starkville Safety Helmet Ordinance. Alderman Corey?
Yes, I was the one that requested this item be put on our agenda, and One of the reasons I did so was in response to a number of complaints that I've received over what some view to be an excessive enforcement of this ordinance. When we adopted this 2 years ago, I did expect some of that. I mean, after all, you're really asking some people to change personal habits, and I knew that that would be accompanied by a difficult transition. However, I've noticed in that time that the number of complaints I've received have remained fairly constant. And I say that not to disparage the chief and the work of the police force. I mean, their job is to enforce the law, and they do a good job at it. But as Chief Lindley himself said earlier tonight when he was sitting up here and talking about the issue of downtown parking and how when they did a lot of enforcement of that, they received a lot of negative response from people. Likewise, I've seen something similar happening here. And I was reminded of that earlier this year when we received an update from our courts, when I saw that over half of the cases heard by our administrative hearing court are now helmet violations. And although it hasn't gotten to a point where it's bogged the court down, it does show that there is a high degree of enforcement of this ordinance. In addition to that, I actually have even had an opportunity to talk to business leaders or business owners that have said that they've witnessed sort of a drop in the number of cyclists that take their bikes to their respective businesses. Not that it's so much caused a drop in business, but that it seems to be causing a change in behavior. A change in behavior by reducing the number of times and the number of places that people will ride their bikes. And so, although I helped vote for this ordinance, and I do approve of what it does insofar as trying to encourage people to do the right thing and wear their helmet and be safe, I've had some concerns that the potential negative impact of it could be outweighing the good by creating an environment where people are no longer wanting to ride their bikes as much or as often as they used to. And so I put this item on the agenda for us to discuss tonight. I didn't have any particular verbiage for this ordinance because there are a couple different ways that it could be changed. You could, for example, only require the helmet ordinance for children and teenagers. You could only have it when you're on the streets above a certain speed limit. I mean, there's a couple of different ways you could go about this. And so I wanted to leave that open at least for discussion. But I would like to at least have us as a board call for a public hearing because I do feel like something needs to be done.
Do you have a motion?
Well, I was going to wait first and then I was going to...
Alderman Sister.
I do have just one question. Would it be useful to you and us as we get ready to have a public hearing to have some input at a less formal setting, maybe with the Transportation Committee or some other group, or would you prefer, do you think the best way to get to where we need to be is through a public hearing here with proposed verbiage changes?
I think we should certainly receive input from the Transportation Committee. I mean, that is one of the things they're there for, and that's what we tasked them for. I do think, though, that we need to go ahead and at least proceed with the public hearing because we can talk to the Transportation Committee at the same time and even take their input and hear it at the meeting. Both, we can meet outside of Board of Alderman meetings as well as public hearing.
Further discussion.
That said, I would move that that we call for a public hearing regarding amending the helmet ordinance of 2010-6 in the next meeting of the Board of Alderman.
Alderman Corey has made a motion to call for a public hearing to amend or just regarding the ordinance?
Amend
to amend the City of Starkville Safety Helmet Ordinance 2010-6 at the next meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman. Alderman Corey, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Corey, do you wish to speak on the merits?
Just that I will make a personal point to speak to the Transportation Committee between now and then, facilitate some feedback from them, and have something in writing to present to the board at the next meeting.
Was that?
That was it.
Okay. Further discussion. Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, with all due respect to the gentleman from Ford, I'm sure his intentions are well. We're kind of putting the cart before the horse, and say this in due respect. I'm not putting it. The gentleman, I appreciate his leadership on this, but the call for a public hearing tells us nothing. Normally, if we're gonna call a public hearing, we should know what is going to be the purpose of amending the ordinance. And of course, and I'm sure, the gentleman probably have some meritorious points, but it'd be good if we knew what the proposed amendments are before we called it. And that's why I inquired to your office today at City Hall or the other day about what the amendments were. So basically what the motion does, it just calls for a public hearing, but it doesn't tell us what we're calling it for, other than amending that, and it tells me nothing. So what specifically, it would be good if we knew what we were going to call it for before we called it, because I've heard a number of things in that I would like to know specifically what are we wanting to do or what's proposed to do specifically. In other words, is to take it from, are we asking the chief not to enforce it? I mean, does it say it's excessive enforcement? What is it exactly is the author of this trying to accomplish? That's all I'm trying to find out before we call for a public hearing. In other words, we need to let the public know why we're calling a public hearing. Are we trying to get a lack of enforcement? We're trying to get an exemption from the ordinance for certain people or certain areas. That's all I'm asking. What is it specifically we want to, or the proponent wants to do with the amendment? Gentlemen, do you have any other information you may want to share? And I'm not putting it down. I just want to so I'll know, because the only thing that's on the table is to call for a public hearing. And we mentioned that there are some that there's excessive enforcement. So what is it that you really want to do with it?
I would personally like to see if we can incorporate provisions that will reduce the number of violations of the ordinance that we obviously are having, based on the sheer number of tickets that are going through our court system. And since we have a requirement to have at least a minimum of 2 public hearings, my hope was to bring those to the board at the next meeting with potentially some options, more than a couple of different options to the board based on some of this feedback. And then we'll have a second public hearing, and so at a minimum, it'll be at least a month before we'll take any official board action.
That was a sufficient response, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Ball.
Where the violation occurring that you're talking about?
Well, and I'm sure the police chief could speak to that some, but I know that there's a number on University Drive. I mean, I can give you a number of specific streets that they're occurring on, and I do know that there have been instances I've been told where essentially helmet roadblocks have been set up to catch people, like, for example, students, if they are coming off of campus, like the moment they leave or enter the city limits.
You have roadblocks all over the city. I got a grandson, 5 years old, and my granddaughter is 11. If they go in this street, you guarantee they got them helmets on. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong.
Personally, I think everybody should wear a helmet. I mean, I do. I always do. But the concern is just that the ordinance itself may be so onerous that it is keeping people from riding their bikes at all. And it is changing people's behavior. There are a lot of people, and I'll use students as an example, but it's not just students, who, as soon as they ride their bike on the campus, that helmet comes right off. I mean, like the moment they leave the city limits on the campus. So I just want to be able to address some of these issues and see if there's something we can do to give some relief.
Mr. Mayor, one last comment may be recognized.
You may.
In defense of the chief here, and I know no one is not trying to say anything negative, about excessive roadblocks. Chief of police is hired to enforce the law. So, I mean, just like a stop sign.
For downtown park.
If you run the stop sign, if you violate, they see it, you're gonna get a ticket. So, I mean, and this helmet's a safety issue, but we'll talk more about this. But in defense of the chief, and they got these signs throughout the community, wear the helmet, safety. If you don't comply with the law, then that's what the chief is to do. I mean, so we got to decide whether we want to have these ordinances or not. If we're going to have these ordinances on the book, that's the chief's job. So I just want to say that in defense of the chief, you know, if it's the law, we can't call it excessive. If we have made something the law, that means we don't want it to happen, particularly if, for example, like the helmet ordinance. So I just wanted to say, but gentlemen, thanks for answering that, but we'll have more of a substantive discussion on this when this comes up. So, but I think, you know, that we have to all be concerned about the safety. But Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
Alderman Ball.
And those bicycle help were part of our safety hometown.
They were.
That was part of that. That's what we got that achievement from. The check that we gave away to the public. That was a part of that.
It was a substantial part of the application that got us a $50,000 grant.
Exactly.
And I'm not advocating the complete abolishment of the ordinance. Rather, I just think we need to at least look at it and reevaluate and possibly amend it.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Corey's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And that will exhaust the open session portion of our agenda and carry us to only matters remaining potentially for executive session. Do I hear a motion to? Motion's been made by Alderman Dumas to go into a closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman. No, Alderman Dumas, you cannot second.
I can't
your own
second.
motion.
Sorry.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. I'll now ask that everybody clear the room.
Matthew.